Welcome to the war you weren't ready for. Rome, 264 BCE, where ambition meets bad planning. You wake up on a sun-baked road, just outside the city of Rome. You're 18, shirtless, barefoot, and hungry. A man with a stick is screaming something at you in very fast Latin. You assume it's an insult, but it could just be your new orders. Your back hurts, your knees hurt. You slept in the dirt again. And the armor you were promised never arrived, unless they meant this rusty bucket someone handed you with a hole in it. Welcome to the Roman Republic. You are not a citizen. You are not a senator. You are a disposable limb of the state. Today, that state wants Sicily. Why Sicily? Because Rome's spent the last couple centuries swallowing up the Italian peninsula like an ambitious python. Tribes, city-states, Etruscans, all digested. Now the Senate looks south and sees a little island full of grain, ports, and trouble. And trouble has a name. Carthage. You've never been to Carthage. You don't know where it is. But you've heard it's across the water, a gleaming, rich city full of merchants, ships, and spices you'll never afford. They're the masters of the sea. You can't swim. You've never even seen the ocean. But Rome's leadership, ever confident, has decided that this foreign naval empire is a threat. And so, you've been told to get on a boat, a new thing you just learned about, and head to war. The official excuse: a little city in northeast Sicily called Messana, C. The Mamertine's former mercenaries, now unemployed squatters with swords, took over the city and then panicked when Carthage showed up. So they called Rome. Rome, desperate for an excuse to punch someone new, said sure. Carthage said wait, what? Treaties were ignored, lines were drawn, and now, somehow, you are here, standing in a line, holding a spear made from cheap iron and wishful thinking, about to invade an island you can't spell to fight people you don't understand for a cause you weren't told. Congratulations, you are now a Roman soldier. Your training was minimal. Your rations are moldy. And your commanding officer just learned what a boat is last week. They say Carthage has hundreds of ships. You don't know what that means. You've only ever traveled by foot. Boats are for fish. But it's too late now. You've been assigned. They branded your name into a wax tablet somewhere and handed you a military stipend worth less than a goat's opinion. The boat rocks beneath you. It smells like sweat, fish guts, and urine. The men around you are seasick and praying to every god they can remember. Someone is already throwing up into the ore bucket. You wonder if Carthage is also doing this. Probably not. And so begins the First Punic War. It will last 23 years. You will see Sicily, the sea, and possibly your own intestines. You will learn new things like what it feels like to fight on a ship, how many rats fit in a grain sack, and the exact weight of a fellow soldier falling on your head during battle. You will not be given a medal, or boots that fit, but Rome will thank you, quietly. In taxes, the war hasn't started yet, and already you regret waking up. You've landed on Sicily. You were promised glory, maybe even applause. What you got is heat stroke. It's hot, it's rocky, and it's full of men who would very much like to bury a spear in your stomach. The beach you landed on had no welcome party, no harbor, and no fresh water. Just jagged rocks, sunburn, and the slow realization that your commander forgot to pack a map. You trudge inland through dust and thorn bushes, wearing a wool tunic that absorbs sweat like a sponge and never lets go. Your sandals, made from the cheapest leather Rome could find, are now more whole than soul. You pass through villages that do not cheer. The Sicilian locals were rumored to be friendly. They are not. They glare at you from doorways, spit in your general direction, and hide their goats like you're here to eat them. You might be. You haven't had a proper meal in days. Meanwhile, the Carthaginians have arrived. They're not friendly either, but they are professional. Their soldiers wear clean uniforms. Their armor fits. They have elephants, siege engines, and commanders who understand tactics. You have Marcus, whose claim to fame is once surviving a beasting. Your unit sets up camp near Agrigentum, a Carthaginian stronghold. And by camp, we mean a loose scattering of leaky tents held together with rope, hope, and mildew. It rains on the first night. The inside of your tent becomes the outside of your tent. You sleep in a puddle, curled around your javelin like it's a wet, judgmental dog. Welcome to siege warfare. You dig trenches, then you fill them in again. Then you dig more trenches. No one explains why. Your arms are covered in blisters, tunic smells like despair, and someone nearby has a cough that doesn't sound survivable. You hurl rocks at walls. You build rams. The Carthaginians shoot arrows back and shout very convincing insults in Punic. You don't understand the words, but you understand the tone. Rations arrive every 4 days. Maybe they consist of hard biscuits that could chip, a horse's tooth and a sour wine vinegar meant to keep morale up. It does not. It mostly keeps your throat burning. You get dysentery. Everyone does. The latrine is just a pit you try not to fall into. You no longer fear death. You fear dehydration. The days begin to smear together. Someone says it's spring. You don't remember what spring feels like. The rats in your camp do though. They've grown bold. You start recognizing them. One of them has a scar and limps like a veteran. You name him Tiberius. He steals your crumbs. You don't mind. It's nice to have company. The siege continues for months. Then years, you lose. Men to fever, infection, boredom. No great battles. Just endless labor under a sun that doesn't blink. Carthage refuses to give up the city. Rome refuses to go home. Neither side wants to be the one who blinks first. Not because of honor, but because of politics. So you sit and wait. You sharpen your spear. You chew your bread. You scratch your lice. You try not to think about the fact that no one remembers why this war started. Sicily is not a vacation destination. It's a giant, sun-scorched rock full of standoffs, sickness, and sandals that will never dry. After years of dirt, trenches, and stale biscuits in Sicily, someone in Rome has an idea. A big one, a bold one, a bad one. If Carthage rules the sea, they say, we'll just build a navy. Just like that, Rome a land power, a foot soldier republic. A city whose idea of long-distance travel is marching for 2 weeks, has decided to become a maritime empire. Genius. You, personally, have never been on a boat. You don't like water. You don't trust anything that moves without legs, and yet you're standing on a wooden dock, staring at a ship made from fresh-cut pine and pure denial. The Romans, lacking a naval tradition, simply copied a Carthaginian ship. After one conveniently washed ashore, they reverse-engineered it like it was a strange, angry horse. Then they slapped together 100 more, using whatever timber, rope, and terrified men they could find. Training. Don't be silly, they handed. You, a paddle and a helmet, and pointed at the sea. The rowing benches smell like old sweat and moldy olives. The deck creaks when you breathe. Your sandals stick to the tar. Welcome to the new Roman fleet. It's bad, every wave feels like a personal attack. You're seasick just looking at the horizon. One soldier is already vomiting into a coil of rope. Another has passed out next to the anchor. No one knows how to tack into the wind. You don't even have sails yet, but Rome is clever in all the worst ways. If they can't outsail the Carthaginians, they'll outstab them. Enter the corvus. It's a long wooden plank with a spike on the end. Like a gangplank designed by someone who hates boats and wants revenge. When enemy ships get close, you drop the corvus onto their deck. It slams down with a crunch, and suddenly you're storming their ship like it's a back alley in Capua. It's madness, it's reckless, it's Roman, and somehow it works. Carthaginian captains, proud of their naval finesse, don't expect you to treat a sea battle like a street fight. They zig, you board. They try to sail. You try to punch them in the face. The first real test comes at Mylae in 260 BCE. You're there, sort of. You're mostly crouched behind a crate, trying not to vomit. But your fleet wins. Not because of seamanship, but because your enemy expected a duel and got a brawl. Tar boils in the sun, pitch drips from the seams. The decks run with blood and broken teeth. You hear the screams of drowning men, some Carthaginian, some Roman, all indistinguishable beneath the crashing waves. Your tunic is soaked in brine, your boots are gone, and your oarmate has passed out face first in a bucket of fish guts. Congratulations. You're now a veteran of naval warfare. You still can't swim, but Rome doesn't care. They smell blood and opportunity. More ships are built. More battles follow. Some go well, most do not. The sea is not kind. And yet, despite the chaos, despite the vomit, the storms, the splinters, and soaked armor, you win a few, because Rome has one terrifying advantage. You are absolutely willing to die on a boat you don't understand, in a war you barely remember, stabbing strangers you've never met, and that kind of madness that wins battles, even at sea. Victory, it turns out, smells like spoiled fish. You've survived your first sea battle by hiding behind a pile of rope and hoping someone else knew which end of a spear to hold. You celebrated with a hunk of biscuit and a half-spilled wineskin, and then your ship sank, not in battle, not in some noble clash with the Carthaginians. No, it sank because of weather, just a little too much wind, a wave that leaned the wrong way. You bailed water for hours with your helmet. The ship creaked, groaned, and then gave up. Much like your commander during basic training, you clung to floating wreckage for 2 days, prayed to a dozen gods, and ended up back on a beach with sand in your ears and no idea where you were with ship number 1. You are now on your 4th ship. They all look the same, creaky timbers, black pitch sealing the seams, and a smell that can only be described as wet goat wrapped in old vinegar. You've stopped naming them. It only makes it worse when they go under. Neptune, god of the sea, clearly favors Carthage, or at least hates Rome a little less. Either way, he is not on your side. Storm after storm slams your fleet. Dozens of ships vanish into foaming black water. Entire legions, thousands of men are swallowed without ever seeing an enemy. There are no memorials, no songs, just names scratched onto rosters, then scratched off. You row for hours. Blisters cover. Your palms, your arms are numb. You vomit again over the side. This time, it feels like a small victory. You sleep in your armor, curled beneath your bench like a very tired sardine. You haven't been dry since the last equinox. You miss the earth. You miss dirt, and then comes Drepana, 249 BCE, another battle. Another bad idea. You're part of a massive Roman fleet, sailing under a consul who, according to rumor, has never seen the sea before this week. It shows the plan was a surprise attack. The execution is a disaster. You row into the harbor at dawn, expecting to catch the Carthaginians off guard. Instead, you find their fleet already assembled, already awake, already in formation. Your admiral panics. He tries to turn the fleet around inside the harbor. It's like watching a herd of oxen try to dance. Ships crash into each other. Oars snap. The corvus can't even be used. The sea is too tight. The ship's too clumsy. The Carthaginians surround. You like sharks circling a bleeding cow. You watch men burn alive in tarred hulls. Others jump overboard and drown in their armor. You're lucky. Your ship just retreats in shame, splinters trailing behind like a comet of failure. Drepana is a catastrophe. 93 ships lost. Over 20,000 men gone. Rome is humiliated. Again, you sail back in silence. No one speaks. The only sound is the slap of water against wood, and the occasional retch from the man next to you. You think about walking back to Sicily. You miss land. You miss dry bread and lice and trench foot. You miss being miserable on terra firma, because out here, the ocean wants you dead, and it's getting better at it. You're reassigned, again. This time, they say it's important, strategic, historic. You're going to help siege a key Carthaginian city on the western tip of Sicily, a place called Lily Bay. It sounds lovely. It is not. The siege begins in 250 BCE. You're about 24 now. You've stopped counting. You've also stopped asking questions. You just show up where they tell you, and hope the latrines aren't uphill from the tents. Your job, surround the city. Cut it off, starve them out. Should be easy, you're told. It won't take long. A season, maybe. It lasts 10 years. 10 years of mud, salt air, rotting leather, and digging the same trench for the third time, because it rained last night, and it all collapsed again. The Carthaginians, inside Lilybaeum, are stubborn. They've fortified the place so well, it might as well be made of granite and spite. You try to breach the walls. They set your siege towers on fire. You try to block the harbor. They send blockade runners at night, sleek little ships that dart in with supplies while you cough yourself awake in the drizzle. You build more towers. They set those on fire too. There's disease, not the exciting kind, no dramatic fevers or plague carts, just the slow rot of bad water, infected toes, and sores that never quite heal. Your teeth ache. Your gums bleed when you chew. You haven't seen a doctor since that one guy with a rusty hook tried to remove someone's hernia by guesswork. You're pretty sure he's dead now. Pay is late. Supplies are thin. The lentils smell off, but you eat them anyway. One of your friends tried to make stew out of pigeon and old wine rations. He hasn't been seen since Dotra Commander stands on a rock every morning and yells something inspirational. He's on his 4th version of Hold the Line. The men just nod and go back to scratching themselves. Morale is a distant memory. Some nights, you think the Carthaginians inside the city have it better. At least, they have walls. And beds. Rome, for its part, is going broke. The Senate is scraping together coins from temples, old estates, and whatever shady backroom deals will still lend them silver. The Carthaginians aren't doing much better. Their treasury is leaking. Their mercenaries are restless. Even their elephants seem annoyed. But nobody stops, because neither side wants to be the first. to admit this was a mistake. Your cohort has shrunk. Not from battle, just from slow, quiet attrition, infections, accidents, boredom. You watch a man trip over a tent peg and die from a cracked skull. Another drinks stagnant water and doesn't wake up once. You found a rat. You cooked it. It wasn't bad. There's no glory. There's barely even anger anymore. Just routine. Dig, guard, march, sleep, scratch, repeat. A new recruit shows up, bright-eyed, fresh armor. Still has all his teeth. You envy his hope. Then you tell him to never, ever eat the lentils. The siege drags on. The world forgets you're here, but Rome doesn't surrender. Ever. Not because it's wise, not because it's winning, but because Rome would rather burn every ship, every city, and every last legionary than admit it can't finish what it started. And that, more than any weapon, is what terrifies your enemies. You're still here, and so is Rome. For now. It's 242 BCE. You thought the war was over. You hoped, anyway. You were back home, sort of. Farming rocks, avoiding taxes, ignoring your bad knee. Then the letter came. From the Senate. Rome is building another navy. The fifth one. The last four are somewhere at the bottom of the Mediterranean, feeding crabs and confusing sea gods. But this one will be different, they say. This one has purpose. Also, this one is privately funded. Apparently, the Senate is broke again, so, instead of tax money, a handful of wealthy Roman aristocrats just paid for a new fleet out of pocket. You wonder what kind of man hears we've lost 4 fleets and decides, yes, I'll finance the 5th, either brave, or bored, or stupid, possibly all 3, so, you're conscripted again. You kiss your goat goodbye again. This time, though, there's something new. Training, actual training. You learn to row in sync. You learn to climb aboard while not vomiting. You learn how to throw a javelin from a moving deck without stabbing yourself in the foot. The ships are sleeker, lighter, faster. You don't say it out loud, that would be bad luck, but you start to feel hope. And then, in 241 BCE, it happens. The Battle of the Aegates Islands. It's spring. The sea is relatively calm. The sky doesn't look actively murderous. Already, this is a better start than usual. Carthage sends a fleet, big, loaded down with supplies, trying to break the Roman blockade. Your commanders, for once, wait for favorable winds. You approach with the sun behind you, and suddenly, it works. Your ships are faster, theirs are heavy. They're expecting the same sluggish, reckless Roman tactics. Instead, you maneuver. You flank. You strike from angles. The new fleet doesn't use the corvus, that giant boarding plank that used to snap ships in half when the sea got rough. This time, it's good old-fashioned naval agility. Still, when the ramming starts, it's chaos, splinters, blood, salt, fire. The air tastes like tar and copper. You leap onto a Carthaginian deck, blade in hand, and realize you actually know what you're doing this time. You fight. You stab. You scream. You fall. You get back up. The water churns with bodies and broken oars. Someone's screaming in Punic. Someone else is screaming in Latin. Someone's screaming in neither. Probably just panicking, and then it's over. Carthage breaks. What's left of their fleet flees or sinks. You stand on the tilted deck of a captured ship, exhausted, soaked in seawater and blood, trying not to throw up from sheer adrenaline. You've won. Technically. You're still hungry. Your boots are full of salt water. and the smell God's. The smell will never leave your nose. But Rome has done it, not through divine favor, not through natural talent, not even through naval superiority, through sheer, exhausting, ridiculous stubbornness. They built a fifth fleet when no sane person would. They trained farmers into sailors. They learned. They adapted, and they won. The First Punic War is over. Carthage sues for peace. You're told it's a great triumph for the Republic. You just want a dry cloak and a decent meal. You don't feel like a hero. You feel like someone who survived an extremely long, extremely damp mistake. But Rome is still standing. And so, somehow, are you. The peace is almost as cruel as the war. And the war's not really over anyway. It's 241 BCE. And someone announces that Carthage has sued for peace. You'd cheer. But you've just watched 3 of your friends die of infection, and your left foot is starting to smell like rot. Besides, you've heard this before, but this time it sticks. The First Punic War, the one that began when you were 18 and stupid, is finally over. You're 23 now, you're still stupid, just older. Carthage hands over Sicily. Rome claims victory. The Senate throws a triumph. Banners, speeches, laurel wreaths, none of which you see, because you're still trying to figure out how to get a boat home. If you're lucky, you do get to go home. A lot of men don't. Some died in battle, some vanished at sea, some are buried beneath walls. They were told to build and later abandon. You limp back to your farm, or what's left of it. Your father's dead. Your brother's been conscripted into a border campaign in Illyria. The roof leaks dot your reward. A small sack of bronze coins, a discharge notice written in smudged ink, and lifelong nightmares of drowning, burning pitch, and chewing sour biscuits in the rain. But hey, Rome on dot, and that means something, even if you're not sure what. The Republic has changed. It's learned something valuable. See, power is actual power. The Navy, once a slapdash experiment with rope, tar, and desperate farmers, is now a permanent institution. Rome controls Sicily, the central Mediterranean, and the trade routes once dominated by smug little Carthage. Speaking of which, Carthage has learned something too. Don't underestimate land apes with boarding bridges. They thought they were safe. Behind their walls and their navy, they weren. Single quotes to Rome forced them into submission by sheer brute persistence. And that persistence cost them dearly. The peace treaty is not gentle. Carthage must pay massive reparations over 20 years, abandon Sicily entirely, and not retaliate, ever. Even when Rome starts interfering in other places, it is less a treaty and more a warning. No one's truly happy. Not really. Rome feels triumphant, but also exhausted, bankrupt, and increasingly smug. Carthage feels humiliated, betrayed, and furious, and quietly, behind diplomatic smiles and tribute payments, revenge simmers. You try to forget the war, you really do, but the scars itch, and the dreams don't go away. You hear whispers, Carthaginian mercenaries revolting, Rome seizing Sardinia, the Senate stirring trouble for no particular reason other than it can. There's tension in the air. You can feel it, like the smell before a storm, like blood before the cut, and then, a generation later, 218 BC, it starts again. Except this time, it's worse. Much worse. This time Carthage sends elephants through the Alps. In winter, you will not be there. You've served your time. You've given Rome enough, but your son might, and his war will make yours look like a tavern brawl, so enjoy your peace. Patch your roof, plant your barley, hug your goat. The First Punic War is over. But no one truly thinks this is the end, because Rome doesn't stop, and Carthage doesn't forget. And somewhere in the hills of Italy or the harbors of Africa, someone is building ships again. So the First Punic War ends, not with peace, but with a pause. You're home. The war is behind you, but the sea is still restless. The elephants are coming. And if you want to know how bad it gets, how frozen mountain passes, starving troops, and one-eyed generals make the next round even worse, you'll want to stay tuned. So wrap yourself in a scratchy wool blanket, sharpen your rusted gladius, and do the Roman thing. Endure, then return. Like the video if your sandals are falling apart. Subscribe if you have unresolved trauma and a distrust of boats. And as always, sleep tight. History is not over yet.